Well, we are into our fourth time with our lymphatic system. So this is our last day for dealing with our lymphatics very explicitly. That doesn't mean that we're done moving our lymph, right? You by now have caught on that every time we move, every time we breathe, every time we do yoga, we move our lymphatic system, right? The practice in and of itself always moves your lymph and always supports your immunity, and there's plenty of research evidence to show that that's true. So we will continue to do it very explicitly and deliberately today, and then as we move on next month, when we start working on heart opening, you will see that a lot of the things that we did this month will repeat, maybe in slightly different ways. But the lymph will keep moving. So anyway, welcome to those who are still trickling in. Lovely to see all of you. I will go ahead and get us started. So yeah, as always, we will start with our opening centering. So many of you have already done this, but settle yourself into the shape that you would like to take for that opening centering, whether it's a seat or a lying down position, whatever serves you this morning. And of course, by now you also know that as you settle yourself into your chosen position, you have the beauty of supports around you that you could use. Maybe that's a chair that you're sitting on. Maybe it's an extra cushion. Maybe it's, if you're lying down, a lift under the head, down through the neck to the very top of the shoulders. Maybe it's a rolled blanket under your knees. So be very kind and compassionate to yourself as you settle yourself into the shape that you will take for the opening centering. And then as you sort of arrive here, just remember that it is wonderful to stay mindfully aware of what is happening in the body, so that if you have picked a position or an arrangement for your body that doesn't serve you anymore, you don't have to freeze into place and endure it. You can mindfully shift a little bit to see if you can find more ease. That said, as you settle in now, also begin to ponder how you would like to place your eyelids. You could close the eyes, you could choose to have them open with a soft gaze. Maybe you find a gentle spot somewhere ahead of you where you rest your eyes. Maybe you close them. You get to make that decision in this moment, and then of course again throughout the opening centering if something changes for you. And then make a deliberate decision about how you would like to place your hands. Perhaps pondering what your hand placement might signal to your nervous system, such as palms up, maybe suggesting that you've arrived, you're ready to be inspired. Perhaps palms down, signaling that you feel a need for grounding and settling. And so be deliberate here too, and notice that as things evolve through the process of the practice, so can the placement of your hands. And invite yourself to arrive fully now in your physical being, in your body, just as it is this morning. Tuning into the experiences that are present, not feeling the need to go out searching for anything, simply opening yourself up to experience, to notice what sensations are there. There is absolutely no need to change anything. There's no need to struggle for feeling something in particular. Just allow yourself to meet your physical being as it is here with you on the mat this morning. And whatever you meet, can you meet it with an open heart? Can you meet it with a kind mind? And can you invite your body to be with you fully for this next hour in a way that supports its flourishing? And this will take a collaboration between your wise self and the body, so that you can begin to discern which movements serve you, which shapes support you, what props might help you. There are so many beautiful ways in which we can nourish our body so that it can flourish, that it can thrive, even in the midst of challenge. And especially our lymphatic system can flourish and support us even more so when we take care of our bodies. And so ponder if you have given your body proper hydration already today, or whether you need at some point to grab a glass of water or a warm cup of tea. Ponder how you can help your body flourish through the way you feed it. And most of all, in the next hour, ponder how you can help your body flourish by staying very connected to how it feels from the inside out to you as we move through our practice. Becoming a partner in how you move your body, and through that, how you move your lymph, and through that, how you support your immunity and your thriving. And holding your body in this loving awareness, gently begin to notice your breathing, your energy, your vitality that is on the mat with you this morning. Again, not seeking to change anything, not struggling to find anything, simply meeting what is already there. And that if that feels very subtle, that's okay. Sometimes the breath is very subtle. Sometimes our energy is kind of subtle. Sometimes our vitality is kind of low. So just notice what is there. And just as you met your body with compassion and with kindness, can you do the same for your vitality, no matter how it shows up? And then depending on how your energy is with you this morning, perhaps ponder how you can help your energy, your vitality flourish. And through flourishing vitality, how can your lymphatic flow flourish? How can your immunity flourish? Sometimes our vitality flourishes by moving with more vigor. Sometimes, if it's a bit depleted, it flourishes by moving less. And so be your own guide here today on the mat. How can you help yourself flourish in your energy and in your breath? How can you stay with a beautifully balanced breath that supports you through the practice? Always listening to your inner wisdom, much more so than to any instructions I might give. And with this beautiful commitment to helping body and breath flourish on the mat and in life, gently check in with your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, maybe the process of your mind. Is there distraction, chaos, sluggishness, lots of thoughts, no thoughts, lots of feelings, no feelings? Meeting, again, whatever shows up with compassion, with kindness, not struggling to notice what's there, but just meeting what naturally comes into your awareness. And perhaps also ponder how you can help your mind flourish. How can you be with thoughts in an open-hearted way without getting trapped in them, carried away by them? How can you allow your mind and your feelings to flourish without suppressing them, repressing them, denying them, but letting them be, letting them unfold, letting them come and go, so that they can do what they need to do to support a healthy mind, a healthy mood, perhaps noticing how a flourishing mind can support a flourishing lymphatic system by inviting all of these wonderful things like hydrating and exercising and eating healthfully, sleeping restfully, breathing naturally. Mind, body, breath, they're all very connected. And if we bring flourishing to one, we will likely invite flourishing in all of them. And when we follow that fourth layer of our human experience, that inner wisdom, that deeper intelligence, flourishing becomes very possible because we become more compassionate with ourselves, we become more loving and kind to our bodies, our breath, our thoughts, our emotions. We become joyful for what we can do and grateful for what is unfolding, even if it's hard. Joyful that we have a human experience. Grateful that we are connected to a greater web of life that can support our flourishing and that we can support through our own flourishing and through inviting others into the kinds of lifestyles and health patterns that support their flourishing, including our being compassionate with them, being loving kind to them, taking responsibility for their well-being as much as we take responsibility for our own. And so with flourishing in your heart, both on behalf of yourself and others, if it suits you, I invite you to bring your hands to your heart as you bow your head to your heart, to notice if an intention emerges for you this morning, a guiding process that brings meaning to your practice on the mat. Not a goal or an outcome to strive for or struggle for, but a simple phrase or word or symbol or felt sense that guides you with compassion, with love, with contentment, with peace. If such an intention emerges for you in whatever form, perhaps you choose to breathe it consciously into your own heart with your next breath in. And perhaps you choose to send it silently and consciously outward with your next breath out. And whenever you feel ready, if your hands were lifted, you can lower them. If you're lying on the earth, you might begin to rise to a seat. If your eyes were closed, you might choose to open them. And if your gaze was lowered, you might choose to lift it. And welcome, everyone. So lovely to have you here. So our lymphatic system is truly an important part of our capacity to flourish, to thrive, to become healthy, where health is not necessarily being free of illness, having illnesses, having to age, having accidents. All of these sorts of pains are part of humanness. But health, and especially mental health, comes from not compounding illness or pain or accidents, with how we think about them, becoming averse to them, fighting them, struggling with them, but instead meeting them however they are, just like we met our body, our breath, our mind this morning, just as they were. Not pushing them away, but also not avoiding them, being with them, and then thinking about how can we promote well-being in the midst of challenge? How can we thrive in the midst of this toughness that human life can present to us? And all of us in this group have had difficulties. We've faced challenges, and we know that there is thriving within that challenge. There can be flourishing within these trials. And so that's kind of where we'll put our attention a bit today as we continue to work with our lymphatic system, so that we can feel that sense of flourishing as we move our lymph, and of course through that also our body, as we release hormones and neurotransmitters, all of the fluidities that we'll release and encourage this morning, all of them will contribute to our thriving and our flourishing. That doesn't mean that we're always happy. That's not the same thing, right? It just means we're committed to being present, to have faith that we can contribute to the well-being in our own life and that of others. Anyway, I could go on and on about that. But so we will continue our journey through the various regions where we have lots of lymph nodes. And so for those of you who are repeaters and have been coming regularly this month, you know that we will start at the region of the clavicles. I love that I saw several hands go up there before I even said it. That's wonderful. And so by now you know that to work with our lymphatic system, we work gently and kindly. And so you could start by simply just giving yourself a little bit of tender loving care in the region of the collarbones. So you could very gently stroke above the collarbones with your fingers. If you prefer, you could tap. You could make little circles. Just becoming aware of what you're bringing with you in this region. Is there a lot of tension and tightness, or is the tissue soft? Not as a matter of judging those things, but just noticing. Are there like stringy muscles? Are there little tight spots that almost hurt, like little trigger spots? And just notice that. And then perhaps very deliberately separate your fingers so that you can bring a couple fingers above the collarbones and a couple below, and very gently move those fingers from the periphery to the center toward the heart. Doing this on one side 2 or 3 times, and then switching sides to the other side 2 or 3 times. And very, very consciously think about how you are moving lymph, how you are inviting flourishing. If you recall all of the different things that the lymphatic fluid does for us, it cleanses, it provides nutrients. It's such an amazing fluid. And so as you stroke here, can you send appreciation to this capacity that you have to support your lymphatic flow, to bring the fluid to the nodes where it's kind of analyzed and cleansed. And then gently begin to stroke a little bit higher from the neck on downward toward the clavicles. You could continue to work with your Spock fingers, maybe a couple fingers behind the ear and a couple fingers in front of the ear as you gently draw the fingers down the front of your neck. Maybe you even reach around to the back of the head, drawing the fingers down lightly, gently, maybe even across the nape of the neck, so that this upper portion where the shoulders meet the neck, and then gently drawing forward. You might even take some fingers and swipe them very gently across your cheekbones, following the curve of the cheekbones toward the temples, and then sliding the fingers down, perhaps brushing at the bottom of your chin, gently sliding the fingers down, all along with this idea of inviting movement, cleansing, nourishing, thriving. And then you could let your fingers come to, or the fingertips, I should say, come to rest sort of at the top of the collarbones, and give a very gentle little motion downward here as you very gently lift the chin toward the ceiling. By now you know our body likes to follow our eyes, so you could roll the eyes up toward the ceiling and just notice how the chin, the head follows. Sensing kindly, compassionately into the back of the neck and not overdoing this movement, so not going so far as to create any painful sensation, but there may be a bit of a sense of stretch in the front of the neck. And then very gently begin to, with a closed mouth, just lift the chin a little bit more to the ceiling without moving the head, just the chin. This is hard to show and talk at the same time. And the roof and the tongue presses to the roof of the mouth. And you might feel a bit of engagement through the front of the throat here. So the tongue presses to the roof of the mouth, the chin slides slightly forward and up. A couple more times. And then very slowly and deliberately you can bring the eyes forward again and let the head follow the gaze of the eyes. You could release the hands now and maybe use your fingers to tuck the chin down, to draw the head back, to bring it in line with the spine, and then very gently turn the head to the right. You can move the eyes first and let the head follow. With your next inhalation, turn the eyes, the head forward, and then with the exhalation, you'll double check that your head is aligned and then turn it to the left. And just do this a few rounds with your own breath, inhaling forward, exhaling back. In the forward position, always checking that you have done your little tuck and draw back before you go to the other side. Letting the eyes lead the way. And notice if you can do this with patience. Slow movement here allows our system to be stable, in harmony. There won't be dizziness, or rather there will be less likelihood of dizziness. Nothing's ever absolute one way or the other. And the next time, if you started with me to the right, the next time you turn left, let that be the last turn of the head. And when you come back from that, simply come to rest at center. And take a moment to really sense into the region of the neck and to imagine your lymph just responding to this movement. And then I invite you to turn your palms up, maybe resting them on your thighs, depending on how you're seated. Maybe your legs are together, or your legs are mine are in a tailor sit, so my hands are pretty far apart. It doesn't matter if your legs are together, then your hands are closer together. It's all good. Palms are facing up. And gently bring your gaze to your right palm. And then take your right palm and walk it forward, letting the eyes follow the palm. Bringing it around to the side, toward the back, however long or far it feels good for you. Keeping the eyes on the palm, let the hand travel up and overhead in an arc all the way to your left shoulder. Eyes and head following, you'll sense a lot of movement through the neck region. With your next inhalation, the hand comes the palm facing you again, and you follow the gaze as you return the hand to your right leg. Whenever you have returned, same procedure, second side. Now you'll bring your gaze to your left palm. It will travel forward and up. Your eyes follow the palm, the head, the neck, everything follows the palm. As you bring your hand kind of behind and above you, gazing at that palm, letting the palm guide the way, but not letting the palm force you into a range of motion that doesn't suit. Bringing the palm up and overhead in an arc all the way to the right shoulder. Resting there, and then with the inhalation, you will lift the hand up again, palm facing you, eyes following the palm as the hand, the back of the hand, returns to the left thigh. So that's the movement. We're going to do this a couple more times to each side. I will talk you through it with my breath, but if you have a different rhythm, if you want to go faster or slower, then just ignore my voice, right? But if you get lost in the movement, then you can come back. So, gazing at the right palm, right hand travels forward, eyes come along, hand goes up and behind. With the exhale, the hand makes a big arc across and down to the left shoulder. With the inhale, the palm faces the eyes again and comes forward and down, back to the leg. When you're ready for the left side, gaze comes to the left palm, left hand reaches forward and up, the eyes follow the palm, the head follows the eyes. With the exhalation, the left hand makes a big arc across to the right shoulder where the palm lands. Inhaling, looking at the palm of the hand yet again as it returns to the left thigh. Last time, gazing to the right palm, inhaling to the back. Exhaling, arcing to the left shoulder. Inhaling, back of the hand to the leg. Gazing to the left palm, waiting for your inhalation to bring the hand forward and up behind you. Exhaling, traveling in an arc to the right shoulder. Inhaling, the palm turns toward the face. Eyes follow the palm as it returns to the left leg. Take a moment to appreciate the subtlety of these movements, the slowness of the movements, and yet think about the power of those movements in, yes, moving lymph, moving muscles, challenging connective tissue, but also really concentrating the mind. Beauty in all layers. And then go ahead and bring your arms straight out in front of you. And as you exhale, draw the arm bones back. Maybe I need to show this from the side. With the inhale, you'll stretch the arms forward as if you were trying to reach something with just your arms. The body doesn't move. Exhale, suck the arms into the shoulder sockets. Back and forth a few times. We are starting to move, right? Not just in the region of the collarbones and the neck now. We're really starting to move in the region of the armpits, right? Where you have all those axillary nodes. And this is a great way to engage these in a really, really safe and balanced way, because you can decide how far you stretch the arms forward and then how profoundly you draw them back into the shoulder socket. So it's kind of like you're pulling your arm bones forward and then you're drawing them back into the shoulder socket. You'll also feel movement under your shoulder blades on your back. The shoulder blades are essential to allowing this movement to happen, because your arm bone actually sits in a forward portion of the shoulder blade that makes the socket for your arm bones. This is really one very interconnected structure. And then the collarbones that we've been talking about so much, they are part of that shoulder girdle as well. And they actually connect the shoulders, the arms, to the rest of the skeleton at a very, very small joint on each side of your breastbone. So this could be quite strenuous by now. It looks so easy. And so feel free now to begin some shoulder circles, almost as a little bit of a rebalancing of that forward and backward effort. Do you feel how nice that is as a relief here? Sometimes it's the really subtle movements that kind of trick us, right? The mind thinks, oh, that should be easy. That looks like nothing. And the body says, oh, that's a lot. There's a lot happening here. So yeah, so we can balance that out with a movement that looks really big, but that in the end, the body says, oh yeah, this is way more familiar. I can do this. Yeah, and then we'll slowly actually make the circles smaller until they are happening at shoulder height. And as you're doing these or making these small circles at shoulder height, see if you can stretch out through the fingertips. Again, sort of creating some extra mobility there in the armpit. Do you feel that? If you're moving both sets of fingertips, one to the right and one to the left, you might feel a lot of drawing outward through the arm. And so that circle can be really small because we're very focused on creating a lot of action through the musculature here. You could try to feel this by stretching out one arm and making that circle and taking the other arm, and you could even do some stroking here in the armpit, in the axilla, to support that flow of lymph toward the heart, right? And then, of course, at some point, when that arm gets really tired, you can switch sides and draw the other arm out and make some nice, maybe gentle circles, drawing fluid from the armpit toward the collarbones. And then when you feel ready for relief, maybe you make bigger circles, this time perhaps also flexing through the elbows. So now we're starting to add the elbow joint. By now you know a lot of lymph nodes are around the big joints that we move a lot. Smart design, right? Because this invites a lot of lymphatic fluid flow toward the regions where there are a lot of nodes. And so now you're beginning to realize, okay, we've really started to clear the fluid from that region 1 around the collarbones. We've moved the neck, we've moved the armpits, and now we're moving the elbows, and now we're beginning to add the wrists. And so like last week, you can get really creative here, depending on what feels good for you. Maybe your shoulders need a break and you really focus on the wrists for a while. If you want more, you could make wings as you're moving the wrists. You can go back and forth. The idea, right, is to bring a lot of movement into all of the joints in the arms. We've created negative pressure at the region of the heart, and so fluid can now dynamically move into the into the veins, the subclavian veins, the veins underneath the clavicles, and back into your blood system. If you would like, especially if you have some edema in your hands, you could, just as we talked about last week, stroke a little bit through the hands, especially between the small bones on in your hands. If you have a hard time seeing those little depressions in your hands, then you might have a little bit of lymph stuck there. That's not so much the case on my hand that you might see on the screen, but I can still demonstrate. So the idea is to gently stroke through those grooves on the inside and outside. Again, these movements are nice and subtle. You're not like really pressing down here. You're just encouraging flow, and be sure to switch sides. And I know I've talked about this, but it deserves be repeating that even if you have lymph issues on one side, say you had radiation only on one side or surgery only on one side, you want to do all of this work on both sides. And you want to be extra careful around regions where there is lymphedema, because it probably means that there are some compromised capillaries there, and you don't want to create more harm. So extra soft and gentle where you actually already have some challenge. And sometimes, you know, the mind does the opposite. It wants to really dig in there and get rid of that fluid. It doesn't work that way. Gentle is better. Compassionate is better. We flourish through the slowness and the gentleness and the compassion of this movement. Good hydration helps. Also sometimes feels counterintuitive. Wait a minute, I'm retaining lymph. Why should I hydrate? Well, it just helps actually keep the fluid moving, and it makes the fluid less viscous. So it's easier for it to move through the vessels. You could work a little bit through the bones around your elbow. This is actually the ulna right here, this bone, that's your elbow. That's the end of this long bone. So you can gently rub through there and then come to the inside. Maybe lift the arm. One more stroking through the armpit, and then the other side, gently moving through all the little nooks and crannies around that ending portion of this ulna, and then perhaps stroking through the inside of the elbow, down the upper arm, and toward the heart. And then if you would like, you can stay seated or you can come to standing. I'll stay kneeling so that you can see me better. And bring your hands very gently to the abdomen. The finger tips, or the tips of the little fingers kind of around the region of the navel, and the thumbs probably kind of somewhere by the lower ribs. And then right under sort of the main portion of your other fingers is your cisterna chyli. That's a big collection of lymph nodes. And so we'll just take a few rounds of breath here with a bumblebee sound on the exhalation, and kind of really exaggerate that bumblebee sound today so that you feel your hands kind of moving inward with some exertion of your deep belly muscles. So inhaling and then making the sound of with the exhale. And as you make that M sound, feel the hands drawing inward as your deep belly muscles contract and support lymphatic flow. We'll do this a few times. You can continue to do this maybe a couple more times, or you can take a slightly more forceful breath, which I don't recommend if you have high blood pressure, if you happen to be pregnant. That's just not a great idea. But on the exhale, you could either do the bumblebee breath, or you can very forcefully draw the belly muscles in, and you could stick your tongue out at the same time. And then let yourself breathe naturally. If you got a little bit dizzy, that's not unusual. You're expelling a lot of breath out. So let yourself recover here. But hopefully you felt a little bit of that pumping action at the core. We won't repeat this again today, but this is something that you could do if you're seated, safe, balanced, on your own, to bring a little extra action there. But by now you also know you can also bring a little extra action there with rotations. And so we're just going to take a couple of sort of easy flows here. You can always let the eyes move to the side first and let the body follow. The body then will move more naturally, which means that if you're moving to the right, the left hips will come forward. If you're moving to the left, the right hips will come forward. Your pelvis will not be anchored. This is actually easier to do if you're standing than if you're seated, because when you're seated, you know, you have more gravity pulling you down on the sits bones. When you're standing, the sits bones are free to move. And so it's very nice to do these rotational movements from standing, or I should say really from just not seated. Couple more times to each side. And then you can come to stillness and find a chair if you don't already have one near you, or a countertop or a bookcase. And turn yourself so that you're facing the seat of the chair, or even a wall could work, or if you're using a tabletop could work. I'm going to have a mock chair here, so just pretend the chair's right there. Nothing new here, we've done this before, we're going to do this again. You're going to inhale, bring your arms up if that suits you, and then with the exhalation, perhaps bringing the fingertips into the hip creases so that you can come forward with a nice natural spine. You don't want to round a lot here, you want to really support yourself with the power of your belly. So feel the engagement. If you have a hard time feeling the engagement of the belly, you could do that lion's breath. You could stick your tongue out. You don't have to be super forceful like we did when we stood, but it'll give you a sense of, oh yeah, that's core engagement. Have that sense of the pelvic floor rising up and in, and then let the hands land on the chair of the seat of the chair. And unweight the left hand, let it dangle. And with your inhalation, let the left arm rise up to the side, the right knee bends, let yourself open and feel that beautiful turn. Exhale, come down, switch sides in between this time. So it's a little different from how we did it before. We're switching sides each time rather than repeating on one side. So you're going to be a little bit more dynamic in that, you have to alternate bending the knees. So we're still working with the rotation with this region around the abdomen. This is sternocleidomastoid. But of course, we now have the flexion in the hips. So we're starting to address the lymph nodes in the hip creases. And because there is this slight bending of the opposite knee, you're also starting to bring some movement into that region where you have your popliteal lymph nodes. So this is a really super all-purpose kind of movement. As you flow side to side, just a couple more times. You can always take a break in between. And then at some point, come back to center. Allow yourself to recover here. You could even take a bumblebee breath here in this position, if that is possible for you. You could try it out and see what happens. Feeling the belly draw inward, the pelvic floor upward. And then bring one hand to the low back and then the other hand to the low back. And rise up to standing the same way you came down, with a nice natural curve in the spine. If you feel stable, you could now take one foot to the seat of the chair. If you are not sure about your balance, you could be by a wall and have a hand at the wall. And otherwise, if you don't want to use the chair, you can come into a lunge position without the chair, where you have both feet on the ground and your forward leg is bent and the back leg is straight. If you are comfortable with the foot here, then you could have a hand at the wall, and you're going to rock forward and back. If you can straighten that forward knee, that's terrific, but it's not necessary. And again, and the same thing with the coming forward. I'll show this on the floor too. If that's where you're working, you can do this on the floor. I actually think this is a nicer movement with the foot on the chair if you can do it. Even if you use the support of the wall, the movement is about really activating the regions around the popliteal nodes and the inguinal nodes, so the nodes in the back of the knee and in the front of the hip. And we tend to get a little bit more range here with the chair. You might see that I have my hands on my hips. I use that so that I keep my hips level side to side. You don't have to do that. You can also use your arms as balance, or as I said, they can be at the wall. The next time you come back, you can step the right foot down. Maybe take a moment to regroup, to rebalance. You could even do a bumblebee breath. And this is a great thing anyway. Now that you know bumblebee breath, you've known it for a long time, you can realize that, oh, that's a beautiful breath to move lymph. So use it regularly. And when you're ready to switch sides, you can bring the other foot up. So if you started with me on the right, we're now bringing the left foot up. You might notice that one foot comes up more easily than the other. You might have a different range of motion on one side than the other, and just allow for that. We are not symmetrical beings. We're pretty symmetrical, but we're not totally symmetrical. And the more we can accept that, the happier we will feel in our bodies. Do notice though if you're more or less stable on one side, and give yourself the pleasure of a hand at a wall if you feel really unstable on one particular side. Props are there to help us flourish. They're not crutches. They are a beautiful way to water the seeds of joy. And you might let yourself really come back to that imagery of creating movement, breathing, coming into the present moment to find flourishing, even in the midst of challenge. Couple more times, or whenever you're ready to end. Wait until you have moved back to step out. So the forward knee is as straight as it might be. Stabilize yourself and then step down. And just take a moment to tune in. You could stay here, or if you would like, you have options again here. Now you can use the seat of the chair for a little bit more movement in, again, all of these regions by squatting and touching down and coming back up. You don't have to use the chair, but it's nice to know it's there, right? If you would like it. Or you can do this without the chair. You get to decide how far down you go. I like to do my squats with my legs fairly far apart, but you don't have to do it that way. If you would like, you could also bring your arms to the inside of the legs, and then you could bring your arms into cactus on the way up. And now we're moving everything, right? Your ankles are moving, your knees are moving, your hips are moving, your belly is moving because you're breathing, the shoulder joints are moving, the elbows, the hand, the wrists. You could even curl your fingers. And you might feel a little bit of heat developing here. And as you may recall from last time, as we move into more aerobic or cardiovascular movement, walking, running, flowing in yoga, we really support the healing and the even new growth of lymphatic capillaries. They thrive through cardiovascular action. They flourish when we move. So now we're not just moving lymph, now we're regrowing and healing lymphatic capillaries that can absorb that fluid out of the interstitial, the spaces between the cells where that fluid collects as part of the exchange that happens to bring oxygen into the tissues and carbon dioxide out of the tissues. How many more times are we going to do this? Only as many as you want to, always, right? But if you're feeling done, then the next time you come up from your squat, feel free to be done, to bring your hands to your heart. Stay standing. I'm just coming down so that you can see me. And let yourself feel your own heartbeat. And just begin to notice what it means to have a stronger heartbeat. You have just invited your system to flourish. This stronger movement can sometimes feel a little scary, but it's actually a sign that your body has worked and now it is recovering. It is healing itself. It is actually flourishing. This is how we water the seeds of joy in body, breath, and mind. And so as you feel your heartbeat under your hands here, can you tune into the joy, the miracle of that? That you have a body that you can move. You have a breath that breathes you. You have a mind that can learn, unlearn, and relearn. You have feelings that guide you. And you are always, always, always able to tap into that deeper human intelligence, that deeper compassion, loving kindness, contentment, peacefulness, and joy. And as you are watching your body re-regulate here, coming back into homeostasis, into balance, into harmony, begin to ponder where you would like to be for your closing meditation. Whether you'd like to be on the floor or on a chair. Notice if your environment is kind of chilly. So do you need a blanket to cover up or another layer of clothing? And let yourself settle into whatever shape you are choosing. Not letting the pragmatics of those choices overshadow the miracle that is still unfolding within you. The flow, the balance, the harmony, the healing, the thriving. It all continues. As you make wise choices about how to place your body, how to support it. And when you have arrived in the physical shape that you've chosen, invite all holding or gripping that is not necessary to hold you in the shape that you've chosen, to let go. You are simply issuing an invitation. You're not going to struggle to let go. You'll just say, this is it. We can let go. We can release your muscles as you surrender your body to gravity. Gently invite the breath to become self-sufficient as well. Inviting it to pulse with the rhythm of life force that flows through all of us. Letting go of any intentional manipulation or control of the breath. Not that we do that often in our classes anyway. But just allowing yourself simply to be breathed as you surrender the breath to the greater wisdom of life force. And then gently check in with your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your stories, and release them as well. Not in the sense of chasing them away or suppressing them or denying them or pretending they don't exist, but releasing them in the sense of letting them be whatever they are. Surrendering your mind to the deeper wisdom of your heart. Tuning in finally to the compassion, the loving kindness, the contentment and the peace that is always part of your deeper inner wisdom. And that is your true source of flourishing. As you release and let go into about 2 minutes of silence until my voice brings you back. And very gently invite your senses to reawaken to your inner and outer world. Perhaps noticing sounds outside of you. Perhaps feeling the earth beneath you and the air on your skin. Perhaps sensing the texture of your clothing, the aroma in your room. And then use your inner senses to notice if your body would like to stretch or move or wiggle, or if it would prefer to remain in quietude. Perhaps you choose to take a round or two of conscious breath, knowing that you're drawing breath in as you're inhaling, knowing in your heart of hearts that breath is moving out as you're exhaling. And if you're lying on the earth and you would like to close the practice in a seat, this is a great time to very discerningly and compassionately shift yourself to an upright position. And if or when you feel ready to do so, you might choose to place your hands to your heart as you yet again bow your head to your heart. Perhaps you take a moment to tune in to whether there is a takeaway for you from class today. Something meaningful, something helpful. Something that seems important enough to give it a bit of extra attention so that you can take it off the mat and into your life. Something meaningful enough perhaps to combine with your intention that you had set or that came to you at the beginning of class. Perhaps to result in a dedication of the merit of your time on the mat. A dedication that, yes, is for you, but it is also a dedication that serves a greater purpose, that serves a purpose off the mat. A dedication that you bring into your community, into your greater web of life. If such a dedication emerges for you, you might seal it into your own heart with your next breath in. And you might silently send it outward into your community of choice with your next breath out. And as always, thank you all so much for participating.